Alrighty, so in this video, the 10th video of the Probability series and the fifth on M&A, we're going to be talking about the purchase price allocation schedule, right? And sometimes this is just referred to as our sources and uses, right? So if you guys remember, this was the third step in our merger model video, right? And essentially all that we're doing is we're figuring out where are we getting the money to finance this transaction and how are we going to use this money, right? So I'm going to essentially build out a little bit more of like a comprehensive sources and uses schedule and kind of walk through each one of those line items, right? So let's first talk about our sources, right? So some sources are typically the excess cash that the acquiring company has, right? So if they have just some cash sitting around, they're going to use that, right? If there's any new debt that's being issued in order to finance this transaction, that's going to be another source of funds, right? Something else is the acquiring, right? We were talking about the acquiring companies equity, right? So if we're giving up some amount of equity in order to kind of finance this transaction, that's going to be something else, right? And now for our uses. Right? So for the uses, well, obviously the most obvious one is kind of the purchase of the target company's equity, right? Another that actually is pretty common is you might have to refinance the debt of the target company, right? So let's say that the target company has $25 million of debt. Well, now that you're acquiring that company, you might kind of pay off that debt and refinance it, right? So this is kind of the refinancing of the target's debt, right? And then we have transaction expenses, and we have our financing fees, right? So that's a typical look at what the sources and uses of funds look like. Some banks actually give you like a Excel model, and you essentially have to fill out the sources and uses of funds and essentially build out like the full merger model, kind of over while kind of sharing your screen. So that is something that I would be relatively like comfortable with. Something else that I did want to mention, I don't know if I mentioned this in typical videos, in terms of a premium, right? So whenever, let's say that there's an acquiring company and a target company, typically the acquiring company is going to pay around a 25% premium on the target company. Right? So that's just a little tidbit, kind of a little fact to know. I don't want to kind of make a whole another video about it because it's just such a short concept, but typically acquiring companies pay a 25% premium on a target company, and of course that will vary, right? So outside of that, I mean, now you guys know kind of how to build out a really basic sources and uses of funds. This is sometimes also called a purchase price allocation schedule. So yeah, hopefully that's been helpful.